I don't know if I can demote them.
That's okay.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and get started. Um, Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about Mid-Atlantic Arts Central Appalachia Living Traditions Experiences grants. Thank you for being here. My name is Ellie Dassler. I'm the Program Director for Folk and Traditional Arts at Mid-Atlantic. My pronouns are she, her. For anyone who's just listening today, I'm a white woman with short, dark, straight hair and bangs wearing a black sweater. And I'm speaking to you today from Richmond, Virginia, which is the unceded traditional and ancestral lands of the Powhatan peoples, including the Rappahannock, Pamunkey, Chickahominy, and Mattaponi tribes who still live here today. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and future. My colleague Joel Chapman is also here today. Joel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Joel Chapman. I'm Program Associate for Folk and Traditional Arts here at Mid-Atlantic Arts. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a white man with blonde hair, and I'm wearing an Orioles crew neck coming in hot from Baltimore, Maryland today. Although it's not hot, it's very chilly. It's a blistery but sunny winter day. The winds are howling here. And Baltimore, Maryland is also where Mid-Atlantic Arts is headquartered, and the traditional lands of the Piscataway and Susquehannock peoples. And if you're attending as a panelist because I sent you the wrong link, sorry about that. But I think we can all behave ourselves, right? Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll have a Q&A period at the end of today's webinar. So if you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A box, which you can access through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. We also have live captioning enabled. To turn the captions on, if you'd like to read along with us, click More at the bottom of your screen and then select Show Captions.
During this webinar, we're also going to go over highlights from the program guidelines. You can see the full guidelines on our website as a PDF or an accessible Word file that's compatible with screen readers. If you have other questions about accessibility and this grant program, or you want to request accommodations, please get in touch with me at least 10 days before the program due date, which is March 10th, 2025.
So this is our agenda for today's webinar. And like Joel mentioned, we're going to go over most of the important parts of our program guidelines and then answer questions there at the end. And just another reminder, you can type your questions into that Q&A box at any time during the webinar, and we can get to them at the end. You don't have to wait until the end. So if you're listening and you hear a burning question, feel free to go ahead and type it in that Q&A box. First, I want to share a bit about Mid-Atlantic Arts. So Mid-Atlantic Arts is one of 6 regional arts organizations in the United States. We serve 10 member states and territories, including Delaware, the District of Columbia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Virginia, and West Virginia. We're part of a national arts service ecosystem that includes local arts agencies, state arts agencies, regional arts organizations like us, and the National Endowment for the Arts. This is our organization's mission. Mid-Atlantic Arts nurtures and funds the creation and presentation of diverse artistic expression and connects people to meaningful arts experiences within our region and beyond. Mid-Atlantic Arts also distinguishes itself through our work in international cultural exchange, performing arts touring, our presence in the jazz field, and our favorite, support for folk and traditional arts.
Yeah, so what are folk and traditional arts? Folk and traditional arts, commonly defined as the art of every day, include expressive practices that are based in and reflective of knowledge, beliefs, values, and aesthetics of cultural communities, such as families, geographic communities, occupational groups, ethnic heritage groups, and more. They're often learned orally or by observation and imitation rather than in institutional or academic settings. All traditions are deeply connected to their history, but they're also constantly evolving and adapting to their changing environments. Folk and traditional arts include craft, foodways, dance, music, storytelling, and many more. Let's look at this example right here in front of us. Some people, some folks, might look at this picture and see a basket, just a basket, which would certainly be an example of folk art or folklore by itself. But looking at the cultural context of this object, we would uncover that specifically it's a white oak basket from Cub Run locality in South Central Kentucky, maybe. We might learn additional knowledge like what it's made from, how to make it, who made it, and where they are from, in what context somebody would use it, and even things like the role it plays in someone's identity. Uh, these are all dimensions of what we call folklore. Folklorists have been wrestling with how to define folklore for over 130 years, and I think that's actually to the strength of it. Like folklore itself, it remains an unexhaustive and flexible term to look at the homegrown art forms that are used for expression, communication, and so much more. If you want to talk about folklore definitions, call me up.
So, what's the program that we're here to talk about? So, Central Appalachia Living Traditions, or as we fondly call it, CALT, is a multi year program designed to promote the understanding and recognition of folk arts and culture in Central Appalachia by investing in communities, seeding new folk and traditional arts experiences, and honoring under-recognized practitioners of traditions in the region. Through its multiple tendrils of programs, CALT serves the counties of Ohio, Virginia, and West Virginia that are designated by the Appalachian Regional Commission, or ARC. You can find a full list of those counties on our website and in the program guidelines. And just note that although Ohio is not technically part of Mid-Atlantic's region, it's not part of those 10 jurisdictions that I listed earlier, Appalachian Ohio counties are included in the CALT region for specifically these programs. And the Central Appalachia Living Traditions Experiences grants are part of the larger CALT initiative. And these grants fund public-facing projects and events in those ARC designated counties in Ohio, Virginia, and West Virginia. Projects that bring community members together around traditional arts practice and cultural knowledge. CALT Experiences program has three main goals: to encourage broad public awareness, understanding, and appreciation of living traditions, to grow and share artistic skill and cultural knowledge, and to diversify the types of traditional arts activities that are happening in Central Appalachia. If you apply, you'll need to address how your proposed project fits these goals. So familiarize yourself with them, get to know them well, because you will have to respond to them specifically in your application. And speaking of those proposed projects, these are some examples of eligible projects that you can apply for through this program, including hands-on learning experiences, workshops, or demonstrations of traditional art, public folk art projects, exhibits, performances or performance series, media production and broadcast, including film and video, radio, or podcasts, and documentation work like work with archival collections or field work. Any proposed documentation work, any field work or oral history interviews or anything like that should be conducted by or in close collaboration with the documented community. And it also must be tied to a public-facing component, like a digital archival collection that's available online for wide use, an exhibit informed by the fieldwork, a podcast created with audio from your interviews, something like that. So if you're thinking about doing a documentation project and you want to brainstorm ideas, just reach out to Joel and I, and we can make sure you can satisfy that public-facing component. We especially love to see projects that engage multi-generational audiences or participants, or that specifically serve communities that have limited access to meaningful arts experiences.
Let's talk about some requirements. For this program, nonprofit organizations and individual folk and traditional artists or practitioners can apply for the grants. You must live or be based in an ARC, Appalachia Recognized County, designated county in Ohio, Virginia, or West Virginia. In some cases, we will consider organizations and artists that are located next to, but primarily serve communities in the designated counties, as long as the proposed project meets all the other grant criteria. So, if you think that's you, please reach out if you have specific questions about your eligibility. Eligible organizations must either be a registered 501(c)(3) nonprofit, a unit of state or local government, or a federally recognized tribal government. Organization applicants need to provide an organizational tax ID and or letter to confirm status as a government entity. If you receive a grant, individual artists will be responsible for paying taxes on the grant award. You'll need to submit a W-9 with your tax information and will be issued an IRS 1099 from Mid-Atlantic Arts. Fun stuff. Recipients of past CALT Experiences grants are eligible to apply again. In fact, we encourage you to. We love to see it. You just need to be in good standing with Mid-Atlantic Arts and have no overdue final reports or grant documents from past grants, either from this program or any other programs. As far as the grant requests go, you can request amounts between $1,000 and $10,000 in grant funding. How much you request does not impact how likely you are to receive this grant, so you just should request whatever makes sense for your project. Go big. Funding awarded for this program must be spent on specific direct cost of your project and may not be used for indirect costs. You'll specify your project's direct cost in the budget section of the application. Um, Direct costs may include things like travel and lodging for artists, fees for that, program staff salary, marketing and promotion, supplies and equipment, printing and publishing, and expenses related to public health measures for in-person activities. If you have questions about whether an expense is eligible or not, please call me, reach out, shoot me an email, something. Lastly, there is no match requirement for this program. Woo! This means you don't have to secure funding from anywhere else, and CALT Experiences could be your only funding source for your project. You might still have other funding sources depending on what you're doing. That's totally cool. It's just not required for this particular grant.
So let's say you've made it this far, you and your project meet all those eligibility requirements, and now it's time to apply. To access the actual application, you'll visit midatlanticarts.smartsimple.com. URL's down there on the screen in pink, and you can also access it via the Mid-Atlantic Arts website. Smart Simple is just the name of the grant platform we use to collect applications and award our grants. So if you've applied for a grant from Mid-Atlantic before, you'll log in using your existing Smart Simple account. But if you've never submitted a grant to Mid-Atlantic, you'll need to create an account by clicking that purple register button at the bottom of the login screen. You'll select the applicant type that fits you. That might be registered nonprofit organization or individual artist, so just make sure you're choosing the right applicant type. You'll fill out some basic personal information and submit your registration. Then you'll receive an email with a link to create a new password and verify your account. And then once you've done all that and you've logged in, you'll click on Funding Opportunities. You'll find Central Appalachia Living Traditions Experiences, and you can get started. The actual application includes several sections, including the applicant information, your project details, which is things like the dates and the type of project, your project narrative, which is really the meat of the application, your budget, and your work samples. You can preview the narrative questions in the full guidelines on our website if you want to take a look at those before you log into Smart Simple. Panelists only spend 15 to 20 minutes reviewing each application. So you want to make sure you answer all of the questions concisely and be selective about the work samples that you choose. We recommend limiting your work samples to like 3 to 4 really strong ones that really complement your project narrative and will help the panelists get to know you, your organization, the artists and art forms you'll work with on your project. You can submit audio, video, image, or document work samples. Video and audio must be first made available online somewhere like YouTube, Vimeo, or SoundCloud, and then you share a URL for the panelists to access it. But images and documents can be uploaded directly to SmartSimple. If you read the guidelines, you'll see all of the work sample requirements and some examples for what kinds of work samples we recommend you include. And you can always reach out to us if you want to brainstorm what kinds of work samples you should share for your specific project. So how do we score these? A diverse group of folk and traditional arts specialists, including culture workers, artists, practitioners, and folklorists from Central Appalachia, will serve as panelists to score the applications and give feedback. Mid-Atlantic Arts staff, like me and Joel, are not the ones who make the decisions about who receives grants in the end, which we like because this lets us advise you about your applications without it being a conflict of interest. And the panelists score the applications based on these 6 criteria and only these 6 criteria. So if you've applied in the past, this year's criteria will look a little differently. We made some changes to streamline the panel review and help make sure that you can address all the criteria in your application and that the panelists can find all of the criteria in the application easily while they're reading it. But please let us know if you have any questions about the new criteria, why we changed them the way we did. The first one is the traditional art form, which is weighted at 20 points. And for that criterion, you should make sure that the panelists understand the art form that your project is featuring, its history, or its sort of modern role in your community, and why it's important. For project personnel, which is weighted 10 points, that criterion shows that you, your organization, and any partners and artists you'll work with are a good fit for the project. So to make sure you cover that criterion, you might share about you or other artists' artistic backgrounds, how you learned your practice, your organization's mission and history, that sort of thing. For the program goals criterion, which is worth 20 points, you'll need to explain why your project fits at least one of those CALT goals that we went over earlier. The community collaboration criterion, which is also worth 20 points, makes sure that you're putting collaboration at the center of the project, that you're working with artists and other partners in your area, and that you sort of have an audience and a community planned for participating in the project. The diversity, equity, access, and inclusion criterion, also weighted at 20 points, shows that your project serves art forms, artists, or communities that are underrepresented in arts programming or have difficulty accessing the arts, and also that your project should show a clear path for accessibility accommodations for your audience. And then lastly, the evaluation criterion, which is worth 10 points, shows that you have a clear idea of what a successful project looks like and how you're going to measure that and know that your project was, in the end, successful. The complete review criteria are on our website, but like I said before, please reach out if you have any questions about how to make sure your application addresses all of these. So here are a couple tips as you start to work on your application. You should start by reviewing the program guidelines on our website. Make sure you really understand the program goals and requirements before you ever start writing your application. Like I said before, you should choose high quality and relevant work samples that complement your application narrative. Work samples could, for example, help show what your traditional art form is, how talented you and the other artists are, or how engaged your organization is in your community, how you've been able to produce successful programming in the past. But it really can vary depending on the project that you're wanting to do. Don't wait until the last minute. Give yourself plenty of time to create an account in our online system, to write your application, to assemble all your work samples, and most importantly, to review everything before you submit. I also recommend that you don't wait until the last minute to reach out to us if you want to discuss your application, which we hope you will, because we love talking to folks about their applications. But the longer you wait, the harder it will be for us to be able to answer your questions on time. It always gets busiest for us. We have the most questions, the most backlog of questions, the closer we get to the deadline. So reach out to us early and often, I would say. Make sure you understand the review criteria. I really can't stress that enough. I mentioned that those are the only things that the reviewers score on. So, you can have the most visionary and worthy project, but if the way that you describe the project isn't hitting those criteria, then the panelists won't be able to give you a good score and you're less likely to receive funding. So the better your application addresses the criteria, of course, the higher score you'll get. And then lastly, this is kind of related to the other one, but don't assume that the panelists are already familiar with you or the art forms that you want to feature. They do all have experience in the folk and traditional arts, but those in the traditional arts in Central Appalachia are so diverse, there's no way that they could all already know every art form or every organization or every artist in the region. So pretend that they're meeting you for the first time. You can really use the traditional art form and project personnel questions in the narrative, as well as your work samples to help them get to know you and to convince them that you should receive funding.
All right, so fast forward, it's March 11th, 2025. You've just submitted the greatest grant applications of all time. I am on the floor, incapacitated. Can't even get up, let alone do my job because they're so great. What happens next? So, first, Mid-Atlantic Arts staff, me and Ellie, will review your application for eligibility concerns. Then the applications are sent to the panelists who evaluate them against those program criteria that Ellie just emphasized. Um, and then we'll fast forward 6 weeks. We'll get together with our lovely panelists and talk about the applications. They'll make grant recommendations, and we'll send those recommendations to our board of directors for approval. Notifications will get to you all about 3 months after the deadline. If you're given a grant, you'll have some paperwork to fill out to make it official, and then the grant money will be yours. It will be paid out. After your project is over, you must complete a final report telling us how it went. You'll find the final report in Smart Simple, the same place that you've completed the application. It will be due 30 days after your project ends. So, some important dates to remember. All applications are due March 10th, 2025 by midnight Eastern Time. I believe it's a Monday. So you'll have the weekend before to work on it. If I'm feeling nice, you might even be able to talk to me up until midnight. We'll see what's going on. Um, but that being said, we cannot accept late applications, so make sure you give yourself plenty of time to plan, ask questions, and of course submit. Sometimes those technology can be tricky right when you need it most. So always good to build in that time. Uh, we'll notify you about the status of your application and whether you've received funding or not by June 20th, 2025. Funded projects must take place between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026. Whew. We call this the grant project period. If awarded, your final report will be due by July 30th, 2026 at the latest. Again, that's 30 days after the latest point at which your project could end.
So thank you so much for being here today. I hope this was helpful, but I'm sure you have questions. So please, if you haven't already, type your questions using the Q&A field at the bottom of your screen or the chat. We'll look at them both. While y'all are typing your questions, I'm going to put my and Joel's contact information up on the screen. And I also encourage you to sign up for Mid-Atlantic Arts newsletter on midatlanticarts.org if you haven't already. Signing up when you sign up for the newsletter, if you select folk and traditional arts as your discipline, then you'll get targeted emails for grant opportunities and reminders about upcoming program deadlines that Joel and I manage. So we're biased, of course, and we want you to get those. But we don't automatically add you to that mailing list just for signing up for this webinar. So make sure to sign up for emails if you would like those updates. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. It's at Mid-Atlantic Arts or at Mid-Atlantic Folk and Trad Arts on all platforms. And that'll also help you stay up to date on program information and highlights. So I am going to stop sharing so I can see questions a little easier. But we can put this back up again at the end. Let's see.
There's no questions in the Q&A, but we have one in the chat.
All
Uh,
right.
can grant funds be used to cover event insurance and fees for judging during a festival?
That's a great question. Yes, as long as it is specific to that particular event, because that would be considered a direct expense that's related only to the proposed project. But the grant funds could not be used to say like pay for your organization's general insurance throughout the year, because that would be an operating expense. But if it's insurance related to a specific event, that's fair game. Same with judging fees. That would be sort of similar to artist fees or partner fees, and those are also eligible expenses. That's a good question.
Anything else? Let them fly.
Unless we did just such a good job of explaining everything that nobody has any questions. We're all experts. If you don't think of questions now, will the session recording be emailed? No, it will be available on our website and on the Mid-Atlantic Arts YouTube channel.
We'll wait just a little bit longer in case you guys think of, just a burning question. But if not, then we all get 30 minutes back of our day. Thanks for coming,
Yeah,
Nicole.
thanks, Nicole. If you log off here, you're feeling really confident, and then later today you think, oh no, I thought of a question. Um, Joel, you can give Joel or I a call or an email at any time. We also will have drop-in office hours starting in January on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, for starting January 22nd and going through to the program due date. The last one will be March 5th. You can find that full schedule and also the link to join them via Zoom on the website and in the guidelines. So this is not your only opportunity to ask questions, though it is an opportunity to ask questions. We also will have one more webinar if you're not tired of webinars, on January 15th at 3 o'clock, which will be a comparing this program, CALT Experiences, with another one of our programs called Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects Grants. The programs are similar, but they have some very crucial differences, and they're running on the same calendar this year. So we don't want anyone to get confused, and we want to make sure that if you're considering one or both of those grant programs, that you choose the right one for you, and your project. So if you take a look at both of those programs and you're feeling confused or you're just not sure which one is the right fit, I encourage you to register and come to that webinar in January as well. All right. Well, it'll be a short one today.